you had $25,000, $50,000, or even $100,000 to invest when your child was first born to pay for their education, is it better to put it in a 529 plan and let it compound for 18 or 19 years? Or is it better to buy a rental property and earn cash flow and let the tenants pay down the mortgage on that property? So I've been thinking about this a lot lately because my youngest child is in the middle of college decisions this spring. And my husband, Steve, and I are both rental property owners, and we funded 529 plans with lump sums when our kids were first born. Generally, we look at that 529 decision as one of the best decisions we've ever made, but we also look at buying rental properties as one of the best financial decisions we've ever made. I talk to clients a lot who have just started their families about this decision. If you have the flexibility to put a lump sum away for your child's education, what are the pros and cons of each strategy? So I want to start with some significant disclaimers up front. One, do we know exactly what college is going to look like 18 years from now? The world is changing rapidly from a technological point of view. College costs have gotten insanely out of hand. College is inflated between 5 and 7% annually, depending on the year, which is nuts. The rules on the FAFSA or the CSS profile could change over time. Tax laws can change over time. So it's always a good idea to talk to your CPA or tax advisor, to talk to your certified financial planner, kind of weigh the pros and cons and the risks and the challenges and the opportunities of these strategies. So let's start with why a lump sum really changes everything. And I've got personal experience with this. So I'm a strong advocate for doing it if you can. When you have a new child, you have the most valuable resource in education planning that there is, which is time, the time value of money. A lump sum invested at birth gives you 18, sometimes 19 years of compound returns. So that time in the market, if it's a 529 plan, or that time in the real estate market, if it's a rental property, time for rents to increase and the value of the property go up. Time is your best friend here. So you want to use it. If you walk away from listening to this video podcast today with one thing, it's that if you have the capital to make a lump sum to invest for your child's education, the most perfect time to do it is in the first year after they were. Okay. So let's talk first about the 529 route, which is the route that Steve and I took for our two younger kids. Think of a 529 like a Roth IRA for education. A 529 account allows you to contribute money after tax. It grows tax-free on a compound basis. And when you take out those funds for education expenses, they're 100% tax-free. If you take them out for something other than education expenses, then you're going to pay taxes on the growth and a penalty with certain exceptions, which we'll talk about. Now, the couple of other cool things about 529 plans. If your state offers state tax deductions for contribute to the 529, and many states do, you're going to want to use your state's plan. If your state does not have a state tax deduction for 529 contribution, you can use any plan. I recommend you use a plan with lots of investment options and low investment fees. Most 529 plans offer age-based portfolios, or the college version of a target date fund, or they may offer a risk model target, such as aggressive, growth, moderate or balanced, income, preservation, etc. Generally, depending on your personal risk tolerance, you're going to be very aggressive when the child is young. As your student gets closer to needing the money, you're going to dial back on the risk to make sure you preserve the capital that you have already grown. So with a newborn, that lump sum, again, maximum runway, you've got 18, maybe 19 years before you're going to have to touch $1 of that money for college. So you can front load the account and grow it untouched for a significant period of time. Now, for our two younger children, that was a complete game changer. That's the miracle of compounding. Let's talk a little bit about how 529 funds can be used. So they're for post-secondary education in general, and that's pretty much any accredited school, including hundreds of international schools. It can also be another kind of post-secondary program, going to become an electrician or a chef or something like that. If your student does not use all of the funds in the 529 plan after a certain age, they have the possibility of rolling up to $35,000 into a Roth IRA. So again, excess funds can jumpstart their retirement savings. And for a young adult, 35 grand growing tax-free in a Roth IRA could make a huge difference in their retirement savings when they're in their 60s. Again, because of that miracle of compounding. You can also change the beneficiary in the plan. So you could pass that money on to grandkids. You could change it to another sibling. You could even transfer it back to yourself. You decide to go back to school. If your student never goes to college or post-secondary education or receives a lot of scholarships or fully funded, then they can eventually, after rolling as much as they're allowed into a Roth IRA, then they can eventually take that money out. They'll pay taxes on the growth, not the principal, not the original contribution, and a 10% penalty because it's not used for higher education. So you certainly don't want to overfund a 529 plan. My guidance to clients is generally fund enough for an in-state, on-campus public school education in your home state. That's the minimum lump sum to do if you have it, and your financial planner can help you figure out how much that is. You wouldn't necessarily fund more than that unless you knew for sure that your child was headed for college and was headed for private. That way, you've got the college savings covered. Now, you can also use up to $10,000 a year in many states. It's allowed federally to pay for private school during the primary and secondary years. And so if your state has an income tax deduction, for example, for making 529 contributions, there could be a reason to continue to make contributions after you've funded your lump. What are some of the downsides to a 529 plan? First, the money's earmarked for education, so it's only tax-free if it's used for education and related expenses. So non-qualified withdrawals are obviously going to trigger those taxes and penalties. So there's no cash flow in a 529. There's no investment returns that you can access during the savings period, the compounding period. So that's a little bit different from a rental property as well. So love the 529 concept. In general, just to sum up, if you can make a lump sum to fund in-state, on-campus public education for your child, that's a great way of knocking out that college goal really early and having that peace of mind, knowing that basically it's done. All right, let's talk a little bit about using that lump sum as a down payment on a rental property instead. Depending on where you live and what real estate market you're in, a $25,000, $50,000, $75,000 or $100,000 lump sum, for example, could allow you to make a 25% down payment on a very nice rental property. So instead of prepaying your tuition through the 529 account, you can buy an asset that grows in value, that generates income along the way, that can be used for college, can be used for your own retirement, your child's retirement, to create multi-generational wealth for your family. Certainly the possibilities are significant. And the fact that you have leveraged your down payment by taking a mortgage to buy this rental property offers you higher potential, right? You can buy a bigger asset because you're using leverage. The other thing is that your rents, your tenants are paying your mortgage. So you're using leverage to acquire this larger property, and then the tenants are paying down the mortgage every month when they pay rent. You are sheltering the cash flow through depreciation expense, especially in the early years of owning a rental. Depending on your mortgage structure, your leverage structure, you're probably not paying that much in taxes. What would you do for a rental for a college strategy? You could, for example, use the rental cash flow to pay down the mortgage faster so that the property is fully paid off by the time your student goes to college. You could use the rental cash flow to go in the 529 plan and make periodic contributions. Or you could use the rental cash flow to buy an additional rental property. So when your student goes to college, then you can, at that time, hopefully after 18 years of rent increases, hopefully the cash flow helps a lot in paying for the cost of college and that your out-of-pocket costs are minimal for your student. And again, that depends on a lot of different factors. I would say that the disadvantages of doing a rental property for your child's education is that really this is not a set it and forget it strategy. Real estate is operationally is like a business. And so somebody is going to be managing that property and doing the work to screen and manage tenants, to collect the rent, to repair and maintain the property, etc., to manage the finances of the property. It might be treated as passive income on your tax return, but it's not passive in terms of effort. And there's also vacancy risk. Obviously, you're on the hook for a big mortgage, whether or not your tenant is paying the rent on time or there's vacancy. There's also some liquidity issues if you plan to sell the property when your child goes to college and use the proceeds to pay for that college bill. One, you're going to pay income taxes, capital gains, and depreciation recapture unless you 1031 exchange it, in which case the funds would be available. Might not be able to sell it for the price you want exactly when you want. Real estate returns are very execution dependent. That's a different type of investment risk than the stock market risk of investing in a 529 plan. Both have risks. They're just really different. So let's talk a little bit about financial aid. There are two primary financial aid applications: the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, and the CSS profile. The CSS profile is used mostly for private schools. The FAFSA is the primary financial aid application used by most colleges. 529 plan assets are typically treated as apparent assets, and the parent is expected, the parent is expected to pay out about 5.65%, I think, of that 529 plan every year towards college. Having a 529 asset would reduce applicable financial aid, all other things being the same. But the fact that the parent is the participant and the student is the beneficiary is generally more favorable than, for example, the student owning something in his or her name. In the terms of the 529 distributions, the FAFSA has historically treated some 529 distributions as student income. So when your child gets to the college payment years, there's some planning that you want to do about the order in which you take money out of the 529 plans and any other assets that you have that you're using for college. A rental property on the FAFSA is generally treated as an investment asset. And so that includes rental properties, lands, vacation homes, etc. So that increases your reportable assets, which reduces financial plan eligibility. So on the FAFSA, both the asset and the rental income are included in the calculation because the FAFSA is heavily income driven. Properties have depreciation expense, so all of that cash flow might not treat it as income on the FAFSA. Now, on the CSS profile, which is used by many private colleges and institutions, they're more aggressive at assessing family wealth. They do treat parent-owned 529 plans similarly to the FAFSA, but they count rental properties, investment real estate, your own home equity, business ownership, and trusts and things like that. They take those into account more significantly on the CSS profile. So if you have a lot of investment real estate, for example, it's probably your situation is going to look better on the FAFSA than it is on the CSS profile. Generally, having a lot of investment real estate either on the FAFSA or the CSS is going to reduce needs-based eligibility. If we just sum up here, if you have a lump sum to invest, consider choosing the 529 if you want simplicity, if you want tax-free compound returns, if you want a very clear and dedicated college buckets. So you want to segregate some funds that are specifically for college or college and private school or college and graduate school. You want less complexity with the FAFSA and the CSS profile. And you want a set it and forget it strategy. You might choose a rental property option with that lump sum. First, if you're already a real estate investor, so you know what you're getting into, you want a long term asset that can serve multiple goals. So, your child's education, but then also your own retirement and maybe passing some multi generational wealth on to those adult children. You want potential leverage driven growth. So you're comfortable with mortgages and the potential returns that having a mortgaged asset can provide you. You're comfortable with the management and operations of a rental property or either doing it yourself or choosing a property manager. Again, 529 plan is a tax efficient education tool, and a rental property is more of a total wealth building tool that can fund education, but also comes with some complexity. Before you choose, you want to run a complete education projection for your students that includes taxes and expected tuition and any potential financial aid benefits to the extent to which you know them now, and how it fits in the context of your retirement planning goals and your estate planning goals. Good thing to discuss with your financial planner, especially early in the new parenting years when you have some choices to make that might make college funding really much easier, 18 to 20. All right, that's all we've got for today. I hope this has been useful, and I'll see you next time.